Okay. All right. Here, I'll take that. Yeah, just write it right here. Write your answers. Like how many out of 8 you got. Put on this. Yeah, just write how many you got there out of the 8. Okay. So do you have yours or do I pass yours? Sit up front. Right there. Yeah. Shannon said she's going to sit up here too. I'll write big enough. You'll probably be able to see it there. All right. Yeah, I'll go. Okay, so the main thing is y'all know that go on YouTube and see all the notes. Okay, that's the good thing. So the notes I've been sending you about going to YouTube and writing down the notes for the last weeks.
Oh yeah, I have. I got the notes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I did yesterday too. So.
I got all of them.
Awesome. There. All right. So, real fast. All right. So this is Mr. Darwin.
It says 12.
Oh, why do I keep writing on that? Thank you. Mr. Darwin and his theory of evolution. And we say that I'll abbreviate evolution like that. That way we don't have to write the whole word out. Okay, so we don't have to know a lot of people for biology anymore. It used to be you had to know all these people and you had to know like no dates, but you had to know a lot more specifics. But now we don't. Y'all have to know Watson and Crick for making the model of DNA. Okay. Always throw Franklin in there, you know, with them. You have to know the pea plant guy, Gregor Mendel, and you have to know Charles Darwin. Okay. So we won't write down, you don't have to know all the details about his life. I'll give you a little backstory. Charles Darwin, around the age of like 22, he got a job and he's from England. And so he's what?
Wasn't his dad with
I don't know if he was or not. I know his dad wanted him to be a doctor, and he was kind of like, I'm not that interested in it. He was more of a wildlife person, like, you know, getting out there in nature. And so he got this job as a ship's naturalist. So he's just like a wildlife biologist on Her Majesty's ship Beagle. So it's like, you know, in England, they would, like, we have USS Arizona. Well, it's Her Majesty's ship and whatever. So, and what they did was, it was also a mapping expedition. So they're sailing around and going to different countries, but they're going around the coastlines. So they left England and sailed around. So they landed several places, but he actually has gotten the name of father of evolutionary theory because he was the first to actually write a book that was pretty controversial on the origin of species. And that was the title of it was The Origin of Species by Natural Selection. And so he said that he explained why organisms change. And what was so controversial about it all wasn't so much that as in he said basically that all species have a common ancestor. Well, that kind of blew up a lot of the creationism and some of the theory at the time that there's this ladder of life and everything's created in a sequence and everything's created doesn't really change. It's like it's been created as it is. And so we know that that's not really true, or at least the fossil record, and doesn't really show it that way. But so what he did was he visited a place called the Galapagos Islands. And the Galapagos Islands are west of Ecuador. So this is on the other side of South America, right there at the equator. And he starts looking, and it's actually an archipelago. So there's like a series of islands that are there. They're all volcanic, just like the Hawaiian Islands are created. They did not break off of the mainland. But there's organisms there like giant tortoises. There are penguins. Penguins usually live south, off the South Pole. This is the equator. Normally, they don't like really, warm climates. He saw these iguanas that were swimming. And then he saw another iguana that looked a lot like that, but it was like a yellow color in the desert part of an island. So like he explored and he noticed that these species, as he, took specimens, he drew, he recorded things, and then he drew some and made some pictures. And what he realized was that these species are pretty unique. So he came to the conclusion, and so we're going to say, and observed unique life that he speculated didn't live anywhere else on the planet. Observed unique species only found there. And from his experience, and then just from what he knew, they figured out, not just Darwin, then after that, is that the ancestors of these species had to come from South America because that was the closest landmass. So come to find out, they had to have ridden rafts to get over there to these islands. The birds could fly, but they had to get there some way. And then once they were there, they started to reproduce. Well, this is what we know. If you take a species and you isolate it and you don't let it back to get back to where it came from, you're going to keep reproducing within your small group. And eventually, over time, you will be a different species. So if we take, let's say, 100 people and we put them on an island in the middle of nowhere and we forget about them for about 50,000 years, the chance is pretty high that they will become very different here. There's going to be a change, a divergence. So that's what he noticed. So he saw these giant tortoises and marine and land iguanas that are unique there, and something called blue-footed boobies. Boobies, which is a bird, just to name a few of the species. But he found these unique life there. So over time, he developed a theory that explained how did these change and become different species. So his theory is natural selection. The theory of evolution on natural selection. By descent with modification. So that means basically that over each generation, the species can change and modify to be better suited for its environment. And we know that because you're going to create a species that's suited for a particular environment. You want it to be perfectly adapted if possible. Now in nature, no one's perfect. A penguin is a great swimmer, but a terrible flyer, can't fly. So there's got to be a compromise with evolution. So basically what it says is that the environment selects those individuals with the best traits best adaptations to be to survive and pass on their genes. Oh, Lori, where'd it go? And pass genes. Okay. And it's based upon several things. One is survival of the fittest. So those that have those best traits are able to pass them on. That's what it means, survival of the fittest. So have y'all heard of survival of the fittest before? Or that phrase at all? So those that have the best traits, yeah, they step up to the plate in nature and they're able to compete and then pass on those genes. You can be the biggest and the baddest in the woods, but if you can't pass on your genes, Darwin said you're not fit. So you have to have not just the best traits, but be able to survive to pass them on. He also said because of, and this is that whole competition. So there is competition there for survival, okay? He also said there are too many babies made that can survive. So they have to be better competitors. So there's overpopulation or overproduction of offspring. Too many babies are made that actually can survive. So that goes back to those frogs and the fish that release a whole lot of eggs knowing that only a handful are going to live. And it just, some of it's just chance. Some of it's they're able to hatch and maybe be faster and get away and hide. So whatever it might be. But he also said that you can't change unless there's a change in the genetic makeup. So he said there has to be variation in a population. You have to have some different options. So variation of traits in a population. So these are kind of, you know, some of the rules that must occur or be present for natural selection to occur. So all this is to help you be better competitors. Well, there's competition for resources. So what happens if you start running out of food? If I'm the slowpoke, I'm going to starve to death. So think about your animal. This is kind of where we're going to end it. Think about your animal. How's it going to obtain its food? What's it going to eat? How's it going to court and mate so it can pass on its genes? What are the adaptations that it's going to have that helps it to do all those things and be a really good competitor against everything else? Okay. All right. So y'all need a computer, and you're going to need. We're going to start your paper, and you're going to share it with me. I won't look at it until you want me. If you want to give me if you want me to give you feedback or whatever, I will do that. Other than that, we're just going to go ahead and share it, so that part will be done. And then you're going to start doing that, and you can start drawing. I've got plenty of white paper to start sketching things out. And your goal is to finish day 2. And if you want to start looking at some of the supplies that I have, if it'll help as far as how you want to design an animal, or if you want to take any of them home, or if you want to leave them here and you can work and build. I'll be here Monday and Tuesday after school, okay, to help with the project. Okay. Y'all have any questions at all about anything?